In order for us to grow individually and as a whole, these conversations are necessary. Let's get it. What up, y'all? Welcome back to Empowering Real Talk. It is your girl, Coach K Woods. And yes, I am back with another dope session. If you have not, make sure you have subscribed to the YouTube channel if you see my beautiful face. But if you are listening on any of the podcast streaming platforms, then make sure you favorite your girl over there and keep on coming with that feedback because it is definitely appreciated. And I definitely am listening to y'all feedback. So, future episodes will be aligned with that. So thank you guys so much for your support. Let's go ahead and get this party started. If you are watching here on YouTube, then you see that I'm not here by myself. I'm going to allow my guest a chance to introduce herself. Hello, hello, hello.
Hey everyone. So my name is Fran. You want me to go into the whole thing?
Absolutely. Tell them who you are, baby. Tell them who you are.
All right. I am an author of a book called Can You Hear Me? I'm also an entrepreneur. I do freight brokering, also previously dispatching for logistics, trucking specifically, for full truckload containers.
Nice.
And I'm also working on releasing a natural deodorant.
Okay.
Yeah,
Come
that's
on,
kind
then. I love it. Hey, y'all heard what she said, entrepreneur. So you already know I love it. Anytime I can bring other women on here to tell you about their story and to also give that insight and that value and resource, y'all know what it's about for me with that. So I'm super excited to get into some conversation with her today. So let's tap into that. So, Fran, tell us a little bit about your backstory. Tell us a little bit about, kind of some of the things that, got you kind of where you are today.
all right. So I could dig into my childhood if you like. That's kind of where
Hey,
I come
it's
from.
empowering real talk, baby. Whatever you feel comfortable with.
All right. So I grew up in my background is I'm Samoan. I'm a Pacific Islander. So my parents, we grew up mostly with other people and mostly in the projects in California. So Southern California and Northern California.
Okay.
So my stepdad, he was a crackhead.
Mm.
Yeah. And so a lot of the influence of why I wanted to do what I do came from not being able to have things around and in the house. We really never had any food around. Only time we had food was that first and 15th of the month, and
Mm.
that went super quick.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't aren't familiar with those numbers, that's if you're on government assistance.
It is. First and the 15th, baby.
Yep, yep. And back in the days, it used to be called food stamps. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Now they done called it, what is it, EBT now? So yeah. I
yeah,
remember them days so,
yep.
so, so clear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like we were always with somebody's always having to be pushed out of the place that I had become comfortable in staying. And because we were too much for that family, we
Mhm.
would end up just, having to go find another place to stay. Or maybe my stepdad did some stuff or had stolen some stuff and I didn't know about it because I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then also, too, growing up in the house, I always watched my mom and dad. It's the first time I'm really calling him dad.
Mhm.
um,
Right.
have like physical fights.
Mm.
Yeah, so like communication in our household wasn't done with verbal language. It was really through fighting and strength. And so watching that really made me hardened something inside of me. Like
Yeah.
I will never let a man touch me like that. I will never let somebody like overrule me like that, which hence rolls into the reasons why I made the decisions that I did in my relationships.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and I get it. I don't think people understand the severity of how like childhood trauma affects us, right? Um,
Absolutely.
I being born, me and my mom, we're super close now, and I love that we were able to finally get to that stage in our relationship. But I was born in a federal penitentiary, and like my
Wow.
mom was in and out of jail the first 13 years of my life. So, my grandmother raised me. And I resented the hell out of my mom for that. And because of that, I can relate to you having that sense of hearting because it's like, hey, I ain't finna let none of this ever happen to me. I ain't finna let you see that I'm sad, upset, mad, any of that. And my grandmother did the best she could, but I did my grandma like shit. Like I definitely don't I she's no longer with us. She's been gone since I was 21, but um looking back, it's like I know she forgave me because again, I was going through my own trauma. So I
Yeah.
don't think people realize the severity of our individual traumas and how they can have that effect. But I love that you had it in your mind. You're like, "Hey, I'm not going to let this happen to me." I'm going to do what I have to do to, make sure that happens. So get into a little bit more because I know you are a mom, and I know that me and you talked about that a little bit. So kind of tell the audience a little bit more about, you becoming a mommy and how that worked.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I do want to talk about that, but I do want to dig into that resentment.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So you had mentioned that you had did your grandmother wrong, and I think mentioning that is helpful because
It is.
the experience of that childhood trauma, it causes us not to really identify and
Mm,
know what the difference is between real love and it ain't shit love.
period. You
So
right.
yeah,
You
and
are so
so
right.
yeah, and we don't know how to nurture that. We don't know how to receive that because it wasn't given to us.
Yep.
So because we can't identify those characteristics and those traits, we tend to treat something that is a blessing for us like it's nothing.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
we go looking for those things in other people and other relationships when that's that whole separation anxiety, with our parents and things like that. And with my mom too, I resented the hell out of her.
Come on.
And yeah, and so I think it's important to talk about that because if we don't really say, hey, why did you do the things that you did?
Yeah.
We sometimes we can't get clarity to move
We
forward.
cannot. And we need that. People can say all day long, do I agree with everything that needs closure? I don't, right? But when
Yeah.
it comes to that, going back to like the childhood and the deep rootedness that
Mhm.
comes behind that, absolutely. Because me and my mom did have those conversations. We had a bunch of those conversations.
Mm.
And she, in the beginning, was not accepting to that. But eventually, she became accepting because I had to kind of change the approach. I went to
Mhm.
her aggressively before. I want answers. Tell me what's going on. But I ended up turning that because again, I was on my own journey. So I ended up shifting that saying, okay, I can't come aggressive if I'm trying to get answers. And that
Mhm.
it actually worked, and it actually the death of my sister brought us closer together too,
Mhm.
because I became a mother of three overnight with the death of my sister. She had two boys and I only had one. So but like, we started to mend our relationship then because back then I was like, whatever. My mom would come into town and I drop my son off and I'm gone for 3 days. If I seen her, I seen her. But I'm just glad that we are in a better space. But man, it took a lot. It took a lot. And it's still times where we have those conversations. But I love that we're in a space to where we can have those conversations because it
I'm re-
matters.
yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up because I'm still working through it with my mother. Because
Hmm.
like I really had to sit my mom down one day because I get phone calls. Hey, can I have some money? And that's really only the time that I get a phone call.
Right.
So I just got so pissed off, and I was like, "Do you not realize that all you do is you call me is when you need something?
Come on.
You don't call me to check up on me. You don't call me to ask how I'm doing, how I'm feeling. But yet when my brothers call you and they have issues, you stay on the phone with them. Where, how does that dynamic work? And then once again, going back into our childhood trauma, she's not really knowing and seeing the difference. So I blew up on my mom and I said, and I was actually cussing. I said, yeah, I was like, I'm sick and tired of this shit. I want you to sit and listen to what I have to say. I don't want any feedback from you. I don't even want to hear anything that you have to say. All I need for you to do is I just need you to sit there and listen to what is in my heart. And I swear I went off for a whole hour.
Hey, you
And
needed
after,
that, sis.
yeah, and after that hour, my mom was crying and she was like, wow, I didn't even realize that I was doing that. And so
Mm.
sometimes we just really have to bring people to a space of being present.
Yes, you so right. You are absolutely right about that. And it's not you trying to be disrespectful. It's not you trying to be mean. You had to tell her, listen, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you, but I need to get this out for me and for you,
Yeah,
because you're going to continue to do it if you don't understand how what you're doing, how you're doing it, and how it's affecting us.
yeah,
Because not only with you, but with your kids, and with your brother, if they have kids, it's going to be a continuing cycle unless we sit down and say, hey, it stops right here. Like,
oh,
it stops right
totally.
here. So I am super proud of you for taking that initiative, but I'm also proud of your mom for actually being receptive and
Seriously.
listening. You know what I'm saying? And I'm definitely, wishing the best for you guys as you continue on making those amends, because it's not an overnight process.
No, it
It's
ain't.
definitely not.
Even there was something that happened recently because she's raising one of my stepdad's kids, and
Okay.
my mom, this is her second marriage, and I heard her in the background yelling at her, and I think she's about maybe 10 or 12, and I said, Mom, how old are you? My mom's like 60 something, and she goes, I'm 60 something. I forgot. My mom was born in 57.
Okay.
And then, and then she goes, yeah, that's how old I am. I said, Mom, how many years out of that time span has you yelling at kids worked? And she goes, it hasn't. I said, don't you think that it's time to make some different kind of choices, different communication? Because it hasn't worked, Mom.
Yeah.
And she
It's a
goes,
default.
yeah. And then she goes, oh, you're right. Okay, I'm gonna work on that. And like that just touched my heart
Yeah. Being
because, like you
receptive.
said, yeah,
Mhm.
it is a very very slow journey,
Yeah.
but I take those small victories.
All day. And I don't think people understand how important those small ones are just as much as the big ones. I am
Yeah,
proud of anybody that actually will sit down and reflect and say, you know what? You're right. They're actually taking the emotion out of it and
yep,
applying the logic,
right,
and that's a lot of times we don't do that. And especially us as mothers, I love how you pointed that out to her. Like, I love how you were like, hey, listen to me real quick. I'm just coming to you. I'm not trying to do anything, but what I'm telling you is, you notice how these things have not, worked before. And
yeah,
she put the logic there for a second. She inserted that logic instead of the emotion, and like, you know what? You're absolutely right. I love that. Like, those are the type of breakthroughs that I be talking about. That's not small to me. To me, I feel it's big personally,
right,
because it's never too late for us to break those cycles. Sometimes people feel like once we get a certain age, that's just how we are. I hate those words. I cannot stand when somebody say that. You know how I am. You know how I get. No, I don't. I don't know how you get.
you're
I
absolutely.
don't know. I cannot stand it, and because I used to do it, and to me,
Oh
it's a
yeah,
lazy way of saying, you know what, this is how I'm gonna be. If I'm being negative and toxic, that's just how I am. Oh, okay. So now I don't got to deal with you because you don't want to make no changes. So, all right,
the choices, right?
absolutely,
And
absolutely. So
and
I think
people,
that breakthrough is so dope.
yeah, and people are giving away their power when they do say those kind of
Hmm.
things. That's just how I am. Really?
Yeah, is that
I
you
mean,
think so?
yeah, it's funny that when they say that it's just how I am. It's like, come on now, nature itself. even tells us that change is consistent.
Ooh,
So why
come on.
does that apply to us?
Hey, it apply every day. I know I make sure it apply for me. And like I said, the thing about it is, one thing I have definitely learned is, if nobody is on a similar journey with me, I don't need to associate. I don't need to
Yeah,
deal with. I don't need to collaborate, do business with, none of that. I am so strict when it comes to my energy. I don't care who you is. I have, told family, hey, I gotta fall back, because I'm not accepting and dealing that with anybody, because I have been walking this journey strongly for the past 3 years. Not
yeah,
everybody know where I stand. So, it's easier for me to enforce it now, because everybody already know, oh no, you can't go to Keisha with that. You can't go to Keisha with that. Yeah, but it took 3 years to get to that point, and I'm happy
oh,
with that, but it also has made things healthier with other people for me too. Those that are still in my life, those new people that have come in my life, because I have definitely lost some people,
yeah.
taking a stand on my own journey,
Oh,
and self-prioritizing me. I have lost people behind that, and it's okay. I ain't lost no love, but I have gained such a sense of peace for myself, and I am so unapologetic about that. You hear me?
that is so important. That creating those boundaries and protecting your peace and protecting
Mhm.
your energy. Like you said, I had to cut off family too. My own son,
Mm.
I had to cut him off. We were at my birthday party, and something happened to where my son got offended because I was having a conversation with my daughter, his sister, and I had just gotten fed up because he has this narcissistic behavior in
Mm.
which I probably, if I'm not mistaken, that's probably a behavior that I had created in him. And that's another thing that is good to talk about,
Absolutely.
is taking responsibility for the shit that we had a hand in, right?
Come on.
And so when I had finally felt like, because when I would be around my son, I would always feel like I had to walk on eggshells. I couldn't say certain things. And that is how I used to be. And
Yeah.
so on my birthday at a restaurant, at a Mexican restaurant, I just finally said, you know what? Thank you so much for the dinner. I can actually pay for it. I am not going to deal with this behavior anymore. Y'all go ahead and enjoy my birthday. I'm going to go home and enjoy my birthday. And that was it. I hadn't talked to him after 2 years after that.
Mm. Hey, and I think sometimes, because as mothers, we automatically, feel like that we're just supposed to accept and deal with, bullshit.
Yeah.
When I walk that unapologetic journey, I walk it across the board. And I know as mothers, we are in protective mode, but like you said, you knew that you were, coddling in a sense and pacifying, walking on the eggshells and stuff like that, because you didn't want to hurt his feelings or
Yeah.
trigger him or whatever else. But we don't have that control. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? We don't have that control on how they react. We can only continue to give what we give, but how you react to that is not on me. And I'm not going to sit up here and dim myself because I might trigger you. Get some help for
Yeah.
that. We'll talk about
Yeah.
that.
And I didn't know that at the time. I didn't
Yeah.
really know that. I didn't know how to. So I, like you said, this is a journey, and I'm trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to respond to this. And I just really had to figure out how to utilize the art of not giving a fuck.
Hey, come on. I love it. You definitely got to utilize it. And it's going to come with some pain. And I think people feel like when we talk about this, that we aren't associating the fact that we are going to go through some hella pain, some hella tears, some hell of emotions behind it. And I damn sure have had my share of cries, when it comes to going through these
Shit.
things.
Yeah,
Hey,
because it's like, this relationship that you nurtured, from childhood, you know, this little baby, and then all of a sudden you have to separate that, not just with your own kids, but just, with those around you that you
yeah,
forge those strong relationships with. It could have been fucking trauma bonding.
that part. It's a lot of trauma bonding around here, like for real, for real. Talking to people, just being a coach or whatever else, it's a lot of trauma bonded relationships around here, whether it is through kids, whether it's through friends, it's a lot of them. And that's
Yeah,
not something that's not talked about enough. It's not talked about enough. The fact that it's a lot of trauma bonded people walking around here acting like that they in best friend relationships, they in happy marriages, they in this, and they're
yeah,
not. is trauma bonded. I looked at a lot of
Totally.
things looking back on like friendships and stuff like that. And it was a lot of things that were trauma bonded. I had to look and say, damn, we only was cool because of this, or we only was
Yeah.
really hanging out because of this. Like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
self-reflection is crazy.
Oh, for sure. My daughter the other day, I came in and I had emotion dumped on her, and she goes, "Hey, mom, you know, when you come sometimes and you pour that stuff out, I need some space. I'm not ready
Mhm.
for that sometimes." And I was like, "Can't be. I know I didn't." I was like, "All this work, all this
Yeah.
work, and I'm still dumping stuff." And she's only 20. Oh my God, I swear my youngest is my teacher. But
Oh,
she was like, "Yeah, mom, I need that." And so like she knows how to create boundaries, with me as well when she feels or whomever it is. And I'm
yeah,
really glad that she's able to articulate that um, to people that she's felt that have crossed their boundaries with her, regardless of whether
absolutely.
it's her mom or whomever it is. So
Yeah.
that right there for me is a little light telling me that I'm on the right path.
You are. You definitely are. Like just having this conversation today, I can definitely, sense that. And we're gonna have our bumps, we're gonna have our obstacles, we're gonna have, our reroutes and stuff like that. I feel like, that we have to realize that just because we're on this path, that doesn't mean that it's not gonna reroute. It doesn't mean that we might not hit a setback. But the thing is, and this is what I teach my clients, like we prepare ourselves for the setbacks, we prepare
Mm,
ourselves for, the wall that might try to come into place, so it's not such a hard blow when we,
yeah,
what I'm saying, when it does happen, because we are going to have those. Life is gonna life. We can't control that. So just being able
totally.
to soften that blow so we can maybe go around it instead of it being the brick wall like I'm behind me, it could be a sponge wall. So you still
Hmm.
gonna hit it, but you'll be able to bounce back quicker, because you're prepared for that. And that's really what I teach,
Yeah.
just prepare yourself for the obstacles because we're gonna have it because we can't control everything.
Yeah, I don't think we talk about that enough, like preparing ourselves for the obstacles, because
Yeah.
like a martial arts class, and she was teaching me how to fall. My professor, she's African American, and she was like, "Fran, you gotta fall." I'm like, "Professor, I don't like falling." And she was just like,
Okay.
"Fran, you have to allow your hand to take the brunt of the break." She was like, "We gonna fall regardless. It's really how you take that energy and transpose it
Yes.
in the fall." And I was like, "You talking to me about jujitsu or life? Because all this is applicable."
What you say? Like, wait a minute now. Where are you going with this? Like,
I know, I know, totally. But
oh my
you're
God.
absolutely right. It's like we do need to like be prepared for those falls and for those
Hmm.
breaks. And I think growing up in the household, kind of like how I grew up, it was like if you were to do something bad or something wrong, it was looked at like making a mistake, or failure was looked at
Yeah.
something that was an actual failure versus an actual lesson, and
Yes.
to
Come on,
be
sis.
used as a pillow. So I want you to talk more about that, sis, because I really think that we need to get into that conversation.
Yeah, I agree. It is. And these is when I say that we are like breaking our cycles and we're breaking those curses and the things that we feel like because our moms and our grandmas did things this way, that's how we're supposed to do it. And it's on every level, right? From religion to spirituality to family, like every level. We are not our parents, we are not our grandparents, we are us, and we have to find our values. If our values say that we still want to holler, fuss, and cuss, then yay, we're gonna holler, fuss, and cuss. If our values say that, I want to look at it in a more gentler standpoint and have a conversation, but it really determines on how you are. You've got to figure out who you are instead of just being a follower and feeling like that this is where you're supposed to be because this is what was embedded in you. No, you have to determine who you are as an individual, and I feel like it's super important for us to embrace that on a daily understanding. that you're not going to please everybody with that. You're not going to appeal to everybody with that, but it's you as an individual. I talk about me being unapologetic. And people feel like when I say that, that I'm saying that I don't care about nobody else. No, why I say I'm unapologetic is because I care about me first. My priorities matter first. Then I'm able to pour into others better because my priorities matter first. I'm not pouring into an empty
Yeah.
cup. You know what I'm saying? So it's like being that person who wants to teach people more about embracing themselves as an individual instead of feeling like that they have to still go to church every Sunday because that's how where they were raised, or because that they have
Right.
to, still spank their kids because that's how they were raised. No, you are an individual. If you're struggling with that, you owe yourself the right to really self-reflect and figure out who you are as an individual. And that's pretty much what I talk about it often. Like in my book, from havoc to healing is my 30-day journal, just really talking about the transformations that I wanted to make at that time. And I walked that journey wholeheartedly. And that's the
And I was
goal
just
for
about to ask you
everybody.
about that, sis. I was just
Yes.
about to ask you about that. Like for those that are trying to figure out what that looks like for them, how can they actually find that, find a way to
Yeah.
forge their own voice?
It really is going to take a lot of deep rooted reflection. It's going to take some trauma responses that you might not want to deal with, that you might want to keep suppressing. But in order for you to truly be able to walk that journey of a positive, more fulfilling life, you've got to be ready to expose everything about yourself, the good, the bad,
Ooh,
and the ugly. And I mean
ooh,
the ugly side of things. In 2020, I actually wrote my book. My book was a journal first. It was my 30-day journal that I recorded in April of 2020. And it's just all kind of deep reflections that I was going through at the time. But what I did is I also was putting in the things that I started doing. Like I really started exploring meditation around that time. So that's in the
mm,
book. So those were just some of the things, some of the, tidbits that were in there. But baby, when I tell you I had to go through the good, the bad, and the ugly, when I tell you I had 2 or 3 days of nonstop ugly crying because I just felt like I wasn't in the right space at the moment. But once I got through crying, I felt so much clearer because I was accountable.
mm,
I was accountable for the things that I might not have done right. I was accountable for the
yeah.
things that I accepted, I allowed. And once I became accountable for that, then nobody could hold anything against me because I'm owning everything. I'm owning all the fuck ups. I'm owning everything. And that's really important. And I talk about it every day. We've got to own everything. The fact that I might have stayed in a relationship longer than I should have, I'm owning that.
Mm,
The
talk about
fact
that.
that, I sat up here and said, hey, I'm not doing this anymore, but I did it 6 more times. I'm owning that,
Mm,
because in order for me to break free from it, I gotta own it. And that goes for
yeah.
everything that we go through in our life, the things that we feel like we fucked up on. We gotta own it. Once we start owning it, then hey, it's up from there. Not to
It's
say it ain't gonna
definitely
be
a
a little
part.
jiggle on the way, but it's up from there because nobody can hold anything against you. Nobody can say, oh, guess what? I know you did this. Oh, girl, I already talked about that. You must ain't read my book yet. Like it ain't nothing you can say about me. You know what I'm saying? I'm good, sis. I'm good.
You're
But
like,
what
I
else you
already
gonna
put
talk
my
about?
own business out there.
That part. That part. So I feel like that in order for us to really begin to walk that path, we got to be prepared for that, and we got to get ourselves equipped to say, "Hey, it's not saying that you're not gonna have them emotions. You're not gonna be crying. You're not gonna be snotting and doing everything else." And it's not an overnight fix. We spend so much time wanting to fix things in one whop. That's why we fall short. We want an
That's
overnight
for sure.
success story, and that's just not the case. So just understanding that your journey is your journey. It's not going to be the same as everybody else. I don't care if you've experienced the same thing as somebody else. It's not going to be the same as everybody else. So
It is
once we
not.
come to that and really embrace our individuality, hey, it's up from there.
Totally. There's this one saying by Ayala Van Zandt. It was in her book called "When I Cried." This is for those that are not. They're on that journey of trying to figure out how to get past like that stuck part where they
Hmm.
feel like, oh man, I don't know how to take ownership of it. Well, if you were in a relationship at the time or whatever the situation was, and you don't know how to get over it, She said to put the blame onto ignorance, because when you
Mm,
have something to blame it on, you can now put that down and move
yes.
forward.
Absolutely. I love that analogy. And she's right. That's what we have to have. And especially as women, we definitely feel like we have to have it and place it somewhere. It's got to be placed in a category. And I know my overthinking brain definitely feels that way. So, but it's like, I'm just self accountable for so much, but also it doesn't have to be a person. And I love that you pointed that out. It doesn't have to be a person where you're throwing that into. It can be a characteristic, it can be something that you're no longer wanting to embrace. Leave it over there. Close that folder. I love that.
Yeah,
I do love that.
yeah,
I think that that's
yeah.
dope.
Just move forward. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So tell us what you got going on. What's going on with you moving forward?
So with me moving forward, I am working on the prologue to the book that I already wrote, which is Can You Hear Me? The new book is going to talk about how I got to where Can You Hear Me, which is called
Mm.
Victim and Violator. So,
Ooh.
like you said earlier, we all there's a saying by Bosma St. John,
Mhm.
and she actually has the new book out called The Urgent Life. But she talks about people always want to be in your victory, but they never want to take responsibility of the hurt that they created in your life.
Ooh, come on. Come on. Mm. I'm
Yeah, I
excited
don't know if
about
you
that.
remember who she is. She's the Ghanaian from she used to be for Netflix and Uber.
Okay. 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 Okay.
Yeah, and sense is out of this world. When you hear her speaks with such a speaks like us, sis. She speaks with such a conviction.
Mm, I love that. When you hear somebody speaking with purpose and passion, you know
Yeah.
that's the go. I appreciate y'all so much for tuning in. Look like we lost connection with Fran, but I so appreciate her being here. Hey, these are the conversations that are necessary, y'all. I want y'all to make sure y'all following your girl on all social media. Make sure you share this episode with a friend, of course. And I will holler at y'all later, baby. Stay empowered.